Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, May 17th, all the way through to Sunday, May 23rd of 2021. And this week we have a lot of big energy in the astrology. We're entering into eclipse season, but in addition to that, we have Saturn stationing to go retrograde at the end of this week. We have Mercury making its first of 3 squares to Neptune also at the end of this week. But at the start of this week, we actually have some pretty nice energy. So the sun's going to be in trine with Pluto. That's going to be amping up our ambitions, our drive, our passion to succeed, right? This is a really great energy for focusing on your biggest goals, anything that you wish to accomplish in order to achieve success. You're going to be feeling much more lit up. We're going to have a lot more energy behind it. We also have some really great energy for relationships at the start of this week, and also for beauty and for communication and for connections, really solid, long-lasting connections with others, because Venus will be in trine with Saturn in the air signs. And so the start of the week is a very different energy from the end of the week. We start out with some harmonious aspects, some harmonious energy, and we end the week with some very kind of harsh Saturnian energy, because that Saturn is stationing to go retrograde, right? As I mentioned before, Saturn stations to go retrograde, but it's also still in a nice trine with Venus, which helps it out a little bit. So it's going to be a mixed bag of energy with that. And so before we get into all of that, I just want to mention, for those of you who are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because I do a new weekly astrology forecast every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and you won't want to miss another astrology update. Even if you're not new to my channel, the way that I structure my videos is that at the very beginning, I spend 5 to 10 minutes doing a general astrology forecast. Don't skip this, because it's going to provide an important context for the energy that you're going to be diving even deeper into in my more personalized astrology forecast for all 12 signs. Speaking of which, when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, make sure you listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for the week ahead. Your rising sign is the most predominant energy, your sun sign will be secondary, and your moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this information will be taken more subjectively and more internalized. Finally, at the end of each video, I do a 2 to 3 minute overview of next week's forecast, so stick around to the end if you're interested in learning about what's coming up even farther into the future with the astrology. Now, that out of the way, let's move on back to the general astrology forecast. And so as I mentioned before, kind of the big energies here are going to be Venus trining Saturn. Yes, the sun trines Pluto. That's kind of a fleeting aspect that'll last for a couple of days, and that's going to give us a little boost. It's going to be a Monday where we're going to be feeling like we need to get serious about something. We need to get the show on the road. We need to be really hyper-focused on something we're feeling very passionate about or very driven toward. And so it's a good kind of Monday energy, right? It's like the start of the week, we're just ready to make things happen and we have a lot of big dreams, and we have the focus and the drive to get us there, to accomplish our dreams and goals at the start of this week. And so it is a good energy on Monday. I really like it. And then moving on to, later in the week, as I mentioned before, we have this Venus trine to Saturn, which is happening on Wednesday. Venus rules beauty, pleasure, aesthetics, right? It rules things that sound, taste, feel good. It rules that positive sensory experience. And so we have Venus in an air sign in Gemini, and it's in a really nice trine with Saturn. Gemini and, obviously Aquarius, they both have this association with communication, ideas, community, conversations, sharing information between people. And so this is a really great energy, I think, for connecting with other people in a way that's very grounded, very stabilizing, very long-lasting. This is a good day for making long-lasting connections with new friends, people in your community, or for, doing something that requires that Venusian energy, that energy of beauty and pleasure and, things really being very poetic when it comes to our language, right? Because this is going to be in Gemini. And so this could be a really great time to, share an important message or to craft something really beautiful using that air energy, using that communicative energy. So it could be a song, a poem, something along those lines. And that could actually work out quite well, especially because Venus is also going to be coming into a conjunction not exact this week, but it's very close to Mercury. And so when Venus and Mercury come together, that's one of the best energies for sharing your thoughts and having it be not necessarily well understood, but well received, right? The well understood is not going to be quite as easy to accomplish because of Neptune being in the mix, but definitely well received, right? You have a more beautiful and balanced way of articulating your thoughts under this influence, or you can harness that, right? You can harness this energy of taking into account the needs of other people and making sure that what you say is going to be well received because you're taking into account not just what you need to say, but the way other people might view or understand what you're saying. And so it creates that balance, and it makes it so you're saying it in, just a really fair, balanced, beautiful way. And so it's usually going to be, easier, easier to get people on board, to persuade under this energy. So I really like that. But then we shift into the end of this week, and that's kind of where the big energy is, because these other aspects are a little bit more fleeting. And so Mercury is squaring Neptune. This brings so much confusion. It's like an energy that's just seriously all over the place. And this is something that we're going to be dealing with all the way through to the middle of July because of Mercury's retrograde cycle. And so Mercury is going to be stationing to go retrograde next week. We're already in that shadow. And so this week on May 22nd, we have the very first pass of Mercury square to Neptune. This is where we're going to come into some sort of lie, deception, confusion, some misinformation that could come into our reality that could kind of throw us off kilter or throw us off course or change our mind about something. This is also where we're having trouble making decisions. And so there could be a lot of ambivalence around what path to take, what decision to make, what answer to give. And that could be a big theme that we'll be seeing throughout that Mercury retrograde on a personal level. It can be very hard to get clarity of thought with Mercury square Neptune, and with such a long square between Mercury and Neptune. I'm a little nervous to see how this plays out kind of more on a bigger scale, just because this has the potential for a lot of weirdness, a lot of multiple narratives going on around the same topic, and all of them conflict, or all of them don't quite make sense, and it's hard to piece together what the heck is going on out there in the world. And on the same token, that could be said for your personal life. This is like, there's a lot of different options, there's a lot of different choices on the table, there are a lot of different pieces of information coming at you from all directions, and it's hard to know which offer is the right offer, which decision is the right decision, which information is the correct information, because there's a weirdness around all of it. And it could be there could be a lot of vague speech, or a lot of vague ideas, or a lot of just vagueness in general, where it's very hard to get clarity and pin down what the right thing is, right? And that's going to be a big, big energy. And also, on a personal level too, like, coming from you, the information could be too vague. It could be too confusing. It could be sending mixed messages. That's the key word here. Mixed messages is the key phrase for this energy of this Mercury retrograde. And I'm gonna talk about that a lot more next week, I think, because I just realized that that's definitely going to be the biggest thing. So mixed messages with Mercury squaring Neptune, and that's good. We're going to start seeing that this week. It's going to be way more prominent next week, and I'll be talking about the Mercury square to Neptune really in detail as we come into next week as well. But the final thing that's going on this week is Saturn is stationing to go retrograde. It's stationing to go retrograde in square, very tight, with Uranus. That square to Uranus doesn't come exact again until, let's see here. I know it's in the middle of June it's mid-June. I believe it's June 14th. So it's about a month away from here. And so when Saturn squares Uranus again, for the second time, we're going to be revisiting some disruptive energy that caused us to have to change, pivot, overcome different challenges, do something new. It could have brought a really great new idea or caused us to have to change something or start something really quickly, but whatever it is that we changed will have taken us a lot more work, a lot more time, a lot more energy than what we thought we would have to be putting into this. It could also just be that a change came externally that caused us to have to put in a lot more time, energy to overcome some challenges. And that energy is going to be reactivated right now. But really what Saturn stationing represents and what Saturn retrograde represents is a period of reestablishing boundaries and limitations in the area of life where Saturn is transiting. And this is also a time where we might have to loosen some boundaries, or we might realize that our boundaries are way too loose in some area of our life, which again we'll get into more specifically in the forecast for all 12 signs. This is a revisiting also of new structures, new things that we've been building in our lives since Saturn first moved into Aquarius, which happened in December of 2020. And so thinking about the hard work, the effort, the push, the grind that we've been going through in this area of Saturn and Aquarius, this is going to be bringing that up really prominently around the time Saturn stations, where there's going to be an extra heaviness, or it's going to be much more apparent, the work that we still need to do. But we're also going to have to, as Saturn retrogrades, revisit the structures, revisit what we've already started building, and look at where maybe there are cracks in the foundation and we need to go back and patch them up, or maybe throw away the foundation completely and start fresh. This is also where we're looking at where maybe we started creating structures and work for ourselves and responsibilities that we maybe didn't even need to take on. So this is where we can start working on letting go of responsibilities, burdens, limitations, heaviness, these new structures that don't serve us, that we didn't need in the first place. And so that's going to be a big part of it too. Also, are the new structures we created, are they really solid? Are they really specific? Are they correct, right? Are they too vague or too ambiguous? What does that look like? And are the new structures too rigid? Because we're also dealing with the Aquarian energy and the Uranian energy on the other side of things too, with Uranus squaring Saturn. And so it might be that we built this, we thought we were building like a foundation for a home, and instead we built a foundation for like a cage or a box or a prison. And it's like, oh crap, this is not giving me the freedom that I needed. It's doing something, but this doesn't feel good, right? So we're going to be revisiting all of that over this Saturn retrograde period. And that's something that we'll get into much more in detail in just a moment here in the forecast for all 12 signs. And I do actually have a quick but important announcement to make before we get into the forecast for all 12 signs. And that is about my Cosmic Community. And for those of you who aren't already aware, my Cosmic Community is my community-led guided astrologer-led membership community, where you get all sorts of access to exclusive, very practical, usable astrology information, live gatherings, live Q&As, webinars on special topics in astrology. This is also where you can find my monthly electional astrology guides through the summer, and all sorts of other exclusive content that I don't necessarily share on YouTube. And so my Cosmic Community is actually undergoing some really exciting changes that are going to be released later this summer. And because of this, the community is not going anywhere. The community is still there. The content's still going to be coming. I'm still going to be creating a lot of really high level, like really unique content for the Cosmic Community. So that's not stopping. But what is stopping for a brief moment in time is enrollment in the Cosmic Community. And so you have until the 25th of May to enroll in the Cosmic Community to get your membership before we close enrollment until later this summer, when we reopen the Cosmic Community in its 2.0 better than ever form. And so if you want to join in on my webinar, which is happening on the 29th, about the astrology of psychic abilities and paranormal experiences, if you want to get access access to my monthly electional astrology guides so you can plan for success this summer. If you want to join in on the live new moon gatherings, the live Q&As, if you want to get access to my new tutorial series on medical astrology that I'm starting up in the Cosmic community, and so many other things, then now's the time to do it, because we won't be letting new members in for a little while we work on some back-end stuff and get things prettied up for you guys. I'm doing a new website, new community. Everything is going to be much prettier and much more user-friendly as the end result of this, and that's coming very soon, and I'm very excited for that part. But yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know, to give you one last chance to get in on that before we close up enrollment, and I'll let you guys know when it opens back up again too. And so that's my announcement. So let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, beginning, of course, with Aries and Aries rising. And so for Aries and for Aries rising, so for you guys, and we're going to be focusing, you guys, on the energy of the Saturn station primarily, because this is going to be the biggest energy. You're going to be feeling this probably more so than a lot of the other energies in the chart. And I mean, it's a big deal. This is going to be an energy that will last not just this week, but it's lasting through the middle of October. So October 11th is when Saturn stations to go direct. And so this is a big deal. And I know it happens every single year, but it happens in a different place, right? And this is the first Saturn retrograde that we're having in the sign of Aquarius. And so for Aries and for Aries rising, this is all going to be all about reestablishing boundaries when it comes to your social circle. And so maybe you've allowed the boundaries to become too lax or too loose when it comes to your friendships. Maybe you've been taking on too much on behalf of other people. Maybe you've been carrying the burden of responsibility for your friends and for your relationships for far too long. Or maybe, your boundaries were too tight. And so you maybe have to go in and loosen them up and let people in a little bit more. You've been going through a period of restructuring and purging any people in your life, any relationships in your life that are too floaty, that are not grounded, that are not stable, that are not supporting you in one way or another, that are not conducive to your growth and to your bigger plans and goals. And so this is a period where you've been kind of going through a little bit of a purge, but also taking on new relationships that might be more few and far between, but these relationships are relationships that are going to be with you for the entire remainder of your life, at least the next 30 years. My experience with Saturn transiting the 11th house personally and professionally and working with clients is that you tend to take on fewer friendships. You tend to let go of certain aspects of your social life and social circle, but the friendships that you do bring on are the most solid friendships. These are lifelong people who are going to be with you, who are going to be supporting you, who you're going to keep, in your circle for a very, very, very long time. So you're having fewer friendships, but more solid friendships is basically what this boils down to here. And so this could be, maybe you did acquire some new connections since December, and maybe you're kind of rethinking that. Maybe, one of the friendships that you took on or some new relationships that you have are too burdensome, too problematic. They're not exactly what you're looking for. Or maybe you cut too many people out of your life and you need to bring some back because you're like, wow, I actually miss you. And I thought this person was like kind of a fair weather friend or just a drinking buddy or something like that. But now I'm realizing that this person was really solid and I miss having them in my life. And so this is where you're going to be reflecting on the work that you've been putting in when it comes to your friendships, your social networks, the groups of people that you surround yourself with by choice, and even your one-on-one partnerships and relationships or close friendships or business partnerships. You're going to be reflecting on the changes you've made, the work you've put in, the purges you've made, and whether or not these things were appropriate, right? And so you want to have the right boundaries, the right structures, the right friendships, and nothing else. That's what we're going for here with this Saturn energy. And then for Taurus and for Taurus rising, So for Taurus, this energy is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. And so when Saturn transits your 10th house, you have to work much, much harder. It's like you're restructuring and recreating something brand new when it comes to your career. You're setting yourself up for success for the next 30-year cycle of Saturn. This could also be for some people who are, nearing your retirement years. This is often a time where people let go of their old career path. They cut their hours, they wind down, they start preparing for the next phase of life because Saturn also rules age. But even if that's not you, if you're somebody who's in your working years, this could have been a limitation or a restriction imposed on you through your work or through your career, where maybe your ability to have a job or hold a job was limited, or your hours were cut or something along those lines, not necessarily by choice, but by necessity or by some sort of outside circumstance. But regardless of what's going on here, there's something that you're working hard on, and there's some limitation that you're working on moving past when it comes to your career and public reputation. And it feels like things are going really slow. It feels like things are not moving as quickly as you want them to. However, you need to do things slowly. You need to do things the right way. And even the progress that you've made so far, you're going to have to be revisiting now through October. So this is where you're going to look at your boundaries when it comes to your work. Have you had appropriate boundaries? Are you limiting yourself too much too? That's another thing when it comes to your career growth and your career opportunities. Are you limiting yourself too much? Or is there more that you can do with all of this, right? Is there more that you can open yourself up to when it comes to your career? What does that look like? This is also a time where you need to cut out any new structures, new responsibilities, new foundations that you've created since December that you're realizing are not necessarily a foundation for your career. They're a foundation for a cage or a box that will just keep you locked into something burdensome, monotonous, tedious. And so that's going to be something that you're going to have to work on letting go of over the next several months until October. But the good news is that whatever it is that you're revisiting here, the end result I think will be quite profitable for you. So stick with it, stay determined. And I think that, the end results of this, even though it's going to take a lot of work, will be positive. And so that's kind of the good thing about Saturn. It's delayed gratification, but once you get that gratification, it's like, holy crap, look what happened. And I worked so hard for this and I'm so proud of myself kind of energy, as opposed to something just falling in your lap. And yeah, that's fun and great and easy. But, you don't have that same satisfaction that you get when you really, buckle down and work hard and build something. For Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for Gemini, this energy is happening in your 9th house. That's actually a decent place because this is helping you to, first off, let go of any old dogmatic, rigid belief systems, any rigid religious or philosophical values that you've been adhering to and that maybe don't actually serve you in some way. So you're restructuring your belief system. This is also an energy that's kind of causing you to have to take a little bit more time or put a little bit more energy into your education, if that's something that's applicable to you. And so this could be an energy where you set out on a journey where you started creating a foundation for yourself when it comes to your knowledge base, when it comes to learning, when it comes to higher education. And now you have to look at whether or not that foundation is appropriate, whether or not there are cracks in that foundation, whether or not you even need that structure that you created anymore, or that belief system that you've created, or that new information that you've taken on. Now is a time to kind of look back and revisit that. Maybe you've been placing limitations and restrictions self-imposed on your ability to move about the world freely or your ability to travel. Obviously, that could be coming from the outside as well. But now is a time where you have to look at those boundaries, right? You have to look at whether you can loosen up those boundaries or maybe you need to tighten them a little bit more. And so that's a big part of this energy as well. But this is one that's going to benefit you a lot more so than other people. Anything that you wish to achieve or accomplish or build, during this time, it's going to benefit you for the next 30-year cycle of Saturn on a lot of different levels and on a personal level. It's about building something that's aligned with your integrity. And so this is where you're revisiting those foundations that you've started to create and you're assessing and evaluating, is this in my integrity? If it's not, then you have to work on letting it go. You don't just purge it all at once. That's not Saturn. You work on very responsibly letting it go. And that's what's going to be going on for Gemini until October. For Cancer and for Cancer rising. So for Cancers, this energy is actually happening in your 8th house. And so this is kind of an interesting one. So Saturn in the 8th house is causing you to have to work a little bit harder on overcoming limitations and restrictions when it comes to debt, taxes, inheritance, joint financial situations through marriage. It could even be that your marriage partner had their hours cut or lost some money in some way. It could be that you're feeling the burden of restriction and limitation due to past debts and you're working hard on paying those off, or you're working hard on creating a new foundation for yourself when it comes to joint finances, when it comes to your investments, when it comes to having a good insurance policy, being responsible in that way, right? Those are all things that you could have been focusing on, and now's a time where you have to kind of revisit that. Is this correct for me? Is this investment right? Is this strategy for paying off debt the right strategy, or do I need to open things up a little bit more? Am I restricting my spending too much? Am I limiting myself in some way? This could also be an energy where you're having to overcome fear, especially fear around death, your own mortality, things of that nature. But this is a really important time for revisiting and reflecting on fears, anxieties, limitations that are imposed from the inside, that are self-imposed based on past traumas and past experiences. And this is where you get to reflect on that and decide, does this serve me now, right? It served you in the past, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't have developed in that way. But does this serve me now, and can I work on letting this go? For Leo and for Leo rising, this Saturn energy is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. You are going to be reevaluating your boundaries in all of your close, personal, most important relationships over these next few months until mid-October when Saturn stations retrograde. This is an important energy. So basically, when Saturn transits your 7th house, you have to either recommit yourself to your relationship or let go of it. And so a lot of Leo rising people are having to deal with that, or have had to deal with that, especially since around December when Saturn moved into the sign of Aquarius. It could also indicate having to take on new responsibilities and work on your partnership if you are somebody who's partnered. And if you're not somebody who's partnered, if you take on new relationships, they have to be really solid and you have to take it slow. And so this is looking at what you've created and built for yourself when it comes to your close relationships, especially romantic partnerships, especially long-term relationships, especially marriage partnerships since that time in December. And are these foundations solid? Is this what you really want? Is this really even working for you? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself as you reevaluate over the next few months. You might decide that you need to let go of certain structures, certain rules, certain restrictions in relationship. You need to change the rules in some way or change the dynamic in some way in order to make this work. You might find yourself actually letting go of relationships, maybe even ones that came in more recently over the course of these next few months. And this is also about fear. This is about letting the past, get the best of you when it comes to your present relationships. And so this is where you need to restructure the way that you deal with your relationships. Work on yourself within the partnership first, right? That's a big part of this energy too. Saturn in retrograde is more internalized as opposed to externalized. Look at the internal structures in your own life, in your own experience, in your own psychology that are placing limitations and restrictions that cause you to feel frustrated in relationships. For Virgo and for Virgo rising, Saturn is stationing to go retrograde in your 6th house, which is the house of work, health, and daily routines. And so, Saturn in the 6th house, not the worst placement, but it does make your day-to-day life feel like way more burdensome, way heavier, like you have too much to do, too much on your plate when it comes to your work and your daily habits, your daily routines, your daily experience. That being said, Saturn going retrograde here is where you have to look at new structures, new responsibilities that you've taken on since Saturn moved into Aquarius back in December. And reevaluate, is this work-related project appropriate? Is this new structure I created for myself appropriate? Is this new work environment that I have taken on and that I've built and that I've created? Is this the right structure for my business, for my work, for my team? Maybe you've had to downsize or let go of certain employees or take on the burden of training and bringing on new employees, and it's time to kind of reevaluate there and decide, is this working for me or is this not? Do I need to purge? This is also about boundaries. So this is a really good time to reevaluate your boundaries in all of your work-related activities, all of your relationships with coworkers or employees, that type of thing. This is also a really good time to look at your boundaries and reevaluate your boundaries when it comes to your health and daily routines. But especially if you're somebody who works with others, now is a good time to look at, am I carrying too much responsibility for other people's jobs? Like, should someone else be doing this? Do I need to be helping them with this? Those are all things to start looking at during this Saturn retrograde time, and to start working on letting go of work-related burdens that you don't need to be doing, to delegate a little bit more so. For Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libras, this energy is happening in your 5th house, which is the house of romance and play and fun and spontaneity and all these wonderful good things. But with Saturn here in your 5th house, it's more about taking the things that you're passionate about, taking the things that you love to do, taking the things that really light you up, that your heart is connected to, and utilizing those passions, utilizing those desires in a way that's very practical, grounded, long-lasting. This could also be creating some sort of structure around it. So, deciding that I really love to paint, or I really love to, do digital artwork, or whatever it is that you like to do, right? Something that you like to do, especially Aquarian, could be like web design or something like that, but it could be, anything really. But it's about taking what you love to do and turning it into something practical. And so for a lot of you, this could be a time where you're thinking about, starting a business or turning your passion into something profitable, or creating a better structure around your business. This could also be something that you're building or working on, or something that you've had to create structure-wise in terms of your children. There could have been a greater burden of responsibility for childcare or for your children's education or something along those lines. If that's the case, now's the time to reestablish boundaries and to look at, are your boundaries a little too rigid or are they too loose? Should your partner be helping with the childcare more, or should you be doing all of this, right? That's a really good thing to look at. Or are you being too strict on your children, or are you being too lenient? That's another thing that you could be looking at with the Saturn energy here. So looking at the structures and the foundation for your relationship with your children. Maybe you've had to be a little bit more of a disciplinarian, and now it's time to kind of loosen the reins a little bit. Or it could be the other way around, where you've been too loose and you need to, have a little bit more structure when it comes to the way that you're dealing with your children. So for Scorpio rising. So for Scorpios, this energy has been transiting in your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, property, and real estate. First and foremost, this Saturn retrograde is a really good time to look at any boundaries or boundary issues that have arisen or are arising when it comes to your relationship with your family, when it comes to responsibilities that you're carrying the burden for, in your home life, in your home environment, within the family unit, and whether or not your boundaries have been too loose. Do you need to tighten your boundaries? Do you need to reestablish boundaries? Or, maybe you've been having boundaries that are too rigid with your family and you need to open up a little bit. So this is going to be a time to reevaluate. There's also some sort of new structure or foundation that you began to create back in December, something that you've been trying to build for yourself to create more freedom, maybe for you and your partner, or to do something a little bit different. But you have to establish a foundation first. You have to put in the hard work first. And this is a time to look at whether or not what you've been working on is actually going to work for you, or if you need to kind of take a step back and restructure, reevaluate, maybe even throw out the old foundation that you've already started to create in favor of something that's going to work a lot better for you moving forward. And so looking at cracks in the foundation, when it comes to home and family and property related projects and things of that nature. This could also be revisiting old ancestral karma or old family karma or family situations from the past that cause a lot of fear or a lot of heaviness. So it could be your relationship with your parents. It could be some sort of childhood experience that you had that's causing heaviness, that's preventing you from moving forward with your current situation, with your current family, with your current home life in the way that you see fit. So that's another energy for the Saturn retrograde. For Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising, Saturn's been transiting your third house, which is not the worst area, but it's been causing, I would say, a little bit of melancholy, even though it's in the third house, even though it's trining your descendant, even though it's sextiling your ascendant, sun, or moon. This is still an energy where your mindset and your conversations become heavier. I actually had this transit it ended last year when we had Saturn in Capricorn, right? So for 2.5 years I had that. And it was like every conversation that I had with anyone was like dead serious, especially with Pluto there. But it was like, there was not any sort of lighthearted, chit chat going on in a lot of areas of my life. It was all business, 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 or, trouble, burdens, whatever. And so that can be weighing on you, right? So take a good hard look at your boundaries when it comes to your communication. Do you need to be the receptacle for everybody else's problems? Do you need to be that listening ear every single time for every single situation? Where do you draw the line with that? That's something that could be really important to look at for Sagittarius. This is also, restructuring your mindset around something and learning a new skill set that's going to take a lot of time. And this is something that you started to initiate back in December. Maybe it's time to reevaluate what you've been learning. Maybe you started a new course or a new certification program, and some of the stuff is maybe good. Maybe some of the foundation is solid, but some of it's not, or there are cracks there, or maybe what you've learned is completely useless and you need to throw it out and start from scratch, right? This isn't a time to throw it out all at once, but this is a time to gradually make that shift, make that pivot, or let go of what no longer serves you when it comes to your mindset, your education, something along those lines. There could also be an energy of needing to set up a new foundation for yourself involving travel, involving vehicles, involving your commute, all of those things. And so this is a good time to reflect on that. For Capricorn and for Capricorn rising. So for Capricorns, this energy is happening in your second house, which is the house of finance, money, material possessions. And so there's something going on here where maybe you had some sort of unexpected expense or unexpected change, or maybe you actively engaged in some sort of change that forced a restructuring when it comes to your financial situation. You're looking at creating a much better, more solid foundation financially for your future, for maybe a big purchase or for a savings or for paying off debts. This is about becoming more financially responsible, but doing it in a new and innovative way, and doing it in a way that will eventually give you the freedom on a material level that you truly desire and that you're truly looking for, so you can enjoy the things that you really love. And so now is a really good time to reestablish boundaries when it comes to finances. It's a good time to restructure your budget. It's a good time to look at, are you being too strict with your spending, or are you being too loose? Are you, giving money to people? Maybe looking at lending and your kind of boundaries with money with other people in your life too could be, especially with your children, that would be a big one. But this is a good time to reevaluate all of those things. Also, there could be a new structure that you've been working on creating, or a new savings account or something along those lines. Or it could be that, there's a lack of savings because there's a lack of income coming in. Now is a good time to kind of reevaluate that situation and look at the cracks in the foundation that are preventing you due to these circumstances or due to your choices from reaching your bigger financial goals, because this is not about short-term gratification or short-term gains. This is about getting yourself financially stable in a way that's going to help improve your outlook when it comes to money over the next 30-year cycle of Saturn. And so this is a really good time to reevaluate. For Aquarius and for Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this is hitting you very personally. And so Aquarius is looking at a major restructuring in all areas of life. This is the cosmic reset on your ascendant, where you are letting go of any old conditioning, anything that you have taken on in terms of your role, your persona, your personality, your goals, your orientation, your sense of self. Anything you've taken on that is not truly you, anything that you've taken on because you've been conditioned to be a certain way, even though it goes against your nature, you are purging that and you are getting back down to the raw core of who you truly are. And, Saturn in retrograde, this is a really important time to look at your personal boundaries when it comes to everything in life. So this is going to be a major period from now through October of personal reevaluation of boundaries, especially if you're an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising anywhere from 13 to 6 degrees, because that's where it'll be retrograding back to. In the sign of Aquarius, you're going to be feeling this in a way that's a little bit heavier, where if you are not having appropriate boundaries in any area of your life, it's going to just be right in your face and you're not going to be able to ignore it because the pressure is going to be too much. And so you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to let go of certain responsibilities. You're going to have to let go of certain people. You're going to have to draw a hard line in the sand in many areas of life and say, hey, that was me before, but that's not me anymore. That's not who I am now. And this is who I am. This is what I do. And this is my boundary. That's going to be so important for Aquarius. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And so that's lasting again until the middle of October. For Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this is you kind of ending a major cycle in your life with Saturn in your 12th house in Aquarius. And so this is going to be a final purge. And this is actually going to be reflecting and reevaluating on what you've been working on letting go of in terms of old patterns, old habits, old cycles, old responsibilities, because you're preparing for the cosmic reset of Saturn on your ascendant, which will be happening in a couple of years here. And so this is a major period of where you need to kind of isolate yourself. You need to spend some time in solitude, seclusion, reflection. And oftentimes during the Saturn retrograde periods in your 12th house, that's when you are forced to spend more time alone. You are forced to spend more time turning inward in reflection. And this is a major reflection period that's going to impact the next 30 years of your life, if not longer. So you need to take it seriously, and you do need to take that time for yourself. And so if you haven't been taking that time, you're going to be feeling it. So this is a good period for rest. This is a good period to pull yourself out of too much of the busyness of everyday life from now through October. And this is also a really good time for you to look at your structures and disciplines around your spirituality. And it's a good time to kind of restructure your spiritual beliefs and your spiritual not your spiritual disciplines, but your spiritual routines, your spiritual habits, your spiritual practices. That's what I want to say. And to reevaluate these practices and look at, is this actually serving me? Is this practical? Can I actually do something with this? Or is this just woo-woo, like nebulous, etheric, whatever, right? And that's going to be kind of this is going to be a moment where you're going to be taken out of the ethers and you're going to be brought right back down to earth when it comes to your spirituality and also your creativity. Like, what are you doing with this? Why are you doing this? That type of thing. Like, that's going to be a big part of this too. So, for Pisces, this is going to be reflecting on all of those things, but also reflecting on what you've been working on letting go of so far. And maybe, just maybe, there's something that you've let go of that you weren't fully done with. And so you have to bring it back in, you have to work on it or reincorporate it back into your life for this new cycle. So you're going to be kind of looking at what you've purged and whether or not that was a good call. And that's going to be another energy for Pisces and for Pisces rising. And so that is my forecast for all 12 signs. Thank you guys so much for watching. Oh, and for next week's forecast, I can't believe I almost skipped that. Next week is a huge week, you guys. So we have a total blood moon, super moon in Sagittarius. This is massive. This is going to bring some huge, crazy, dramatic changes in so many people's lives. I'm actually pretty excited for this super moon eclipse energy, even though it's hitting me pretty intensely. and it's an intense energy. And we also have Mercury stationing to go retrograde. So we'll discuss a lot more next week, the energy of Mercury square Neptune and how that's going to play out for a very long time, a couple of months here, in addition to this super transformative, life-changing energy of this really powerful eclipse that we're all going to be feeling in one way or another. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and make sure you share it with your friends if you feel like they can benefit from what we just learned here today. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.